Hi, and welcome back to Hot Off the Press, the show about new releases and the authors that bring them to you. I'm your host, Jim Nettles, and tonight we've got some fantastic new releases. Let's see who has brought them to the table. So, Patrick, you're going to be up first.
Hey, I'm Patrick Dugan. My new release as of today, the day we're recording, not the day you're watching, is Never Steal from Dragons. It's a cyberpunk heist book set in the world of the fairies.
Suzanne?
I'm Suzanne Ferrell, and the book I have coming out is going to come out May 9th, and it's the third book in my World War II Spy Chaser series called Captured.
And Mel.
Hi, I'm Mel Todd. I actually have a short story collection that I put out that is out right now, regardless of when you're watching this, called Words Are Magic.
So let's dive in and talk a little bit in terms of what we're bringing to the table here. Talk about the worlds, the stories, just kind of a general idea of what somebody's going to get in picking up the book. So, Patrick?
So if you cross Ocean's 11 with The Matrix and set it in Lord of the Rings, you're probably pretty close to what you're getting with my book. So the story revolves around a team of misfits and thieves that get drafted together by a dragon to steal something from a fortress that's never been broken into. And then hijinks ensues.
So, Suzanne, how about yours? And maybe we want to talk a little bit about the series overall, since this is third in series.
Well, first off, I could give you the right title. We changed the title, and I gave you the old one. It's actually called Cornered. The series starts in 1941 in the spring. And it's a group of five Office of Naval Intelligence operatives who are on a trawler, and they are pretending to be smugglers, and they find Nazi spies coming on shore to sabotage one of the emergency shipbuilding facilities that they built one in Wilmington, North Carolina, and that's where I set it. And then the second book is called Tracked. It takes place the week before Pearl Harbor, when they're doing Army war games in North and South Carolina, because they figured out, oh, we have this new tank stuff. We ought to figure out how to do it. And we have all these new officers, and they don't know how to lead men in war, and we are probably going to go to war. And so that's the second book. This third book is kind of weird. I came across a story about Operation Torch, which was the Allied invasion of North Africa. And there was a guy who is the river pilot for the Sabo River, which is in northern Morocco. It comes off the Mediterranean, and it's the Atlas Mountains down into the Mediterranean. And there's lots of sandbars in this river, but it's also the only river where they have a large, or only place in Morocco where they have an airport built on cement, and Patton wants it. So they get this little guy to go there, and he actually gets arrested, and is in France in August of 1941. So my book, actually, the third book starts in between the first and the second book, and they come back around a year later when Operation Torch actually happens, because they now have to save the heroine who is still stuck there. So it was a two-part book taking place over a year. It's kind of weirdly written.
Mel, so let's dive in a little bit with the short story collection. Kind of what's the theme and what are we going to get out of it?
And so basically, this is a collection of short stories I've written over the years. At least 3, if not 4 of them, are ones that were previously printed in anthologies that I got the rights back to. The majority of them tend to be set in a contemporary landscape. So you have cell phones, you have cars, you have the United States, you have things like that. But I've done at least one that's a flat out fantasy and happens in some kingdom far, far away. But they're pretty wide array. I mean, in one, I have a guy that can talk to animals. In another one, I have an officer who's serving at Area 51. In another one, I have a girl from the hills of North Georgia that stumbles upon an alien invasion. It's a pretty wide range of things, but I will say that the reviews I've been getting are pretty good. I think I've got running at like 4.5, something like that. The one that I love is the 1-star review with no comment. There's just one. I'm like, so, but the big draw for a lot of people is that I put in a story about Carillion, who is the cat that features very prominently in my Twisted Left series about him as a young kitten, which is just highly amusing. I will just have 2 words for you, and that is fishy breath.
Well, let's dive a little bit deeper in these stories. So, Suzanne, and I'm going to start with you on this one. Let's talk about who we're going to be spending time with. Who are the characters we're following? Kind of what are we diving into? Who are we going to be hanging out with and going on the adventure with?
The 3rd book features Chief. He's the oldest member of the crew. He's been in the Navy for 20 years. He joined when he was 18, so he's like 38. And he is a chief petty officer, so he got the nickname Chief. They all have nicknames. The leader of the group is called Neptune. There's a guy called Cowboy. He's from Texas. There's a kid from Kentucky they called Scout. He was actually the hero in the 2nd book. And there's a guy from Boston. They call Boston. He can't say a sentence without a curse word, so that's always kind of fun. And so this Chief is attracted to this missionary nurse that's in Morocco, who ends up being their guide up this river. And she's an older heroine. She's been there for a while. And they're there for a specific mission to get details of this river. Somebody in the Navy thinks they might need to know it, and they do end up needing to know some of it a year later for the invasion. And they separate. She's staying because she feels like she has her own mission. She may or may not be helping the resistance too, because she ends up in Nazi hands at some point. And to have them fall in love, I had them write letters to each other, because that's the only way they're going to be able to communicate. It's not like they have cell phones, but back in 1941.
So who is our hero of this one?
Chief.
So Chief's the hero of this one.
Chief's the hero of this one. And he's kind of the stoic guy, the very sensible guy, and come hell or high water, he's going to save her. So that's, I've been stuck in Morocco, basically trying to help them evade the Nazis, and I discovered something about the Atlas Mountains. There aren't any trees. There's no place to hide.
So Mel, we started talking a little bit about Carillion. Who are some of the other folks we're going to hang out with in the shorts?
Oh, good grief. There is Jonah Moby, and I have multiple stories written about him. He is what is called a beast whisperer, and it's a universe that's been kind of slowly evolving, and it's a universe of basically small magics, where you either have a big magic or you have a small magic. And his small magic is that he can talk to animals, which in the story, in the short, leads him into negotiating safe passage through a barghast nest. There's another one that's out there in a different book where it's him finding a dragon and having issues with said dragon. Let's just say vets are very handy. There's a couple that I truly love. They're just interesting. One of them is called High School Reunion. And all of you who are over the age of basically, 28, have probably been invited to a high school reunion. So I have a girl that goes to our high school reunion and nobody recognizes her. She's like, I have no idea why I'm here. This is stupid. I should have never come. And she gets way too drunk and goes to bed in her hotel room and has a horrible dream about, you guessed it, high school life. Because we all know how wonderfully fun high school was for the majority of us. And so she's going through this dream and she's just like, screw it. This is stupid. And she does all of these things like, oh, how many of you guys remember having to dance for gym? Foursquare or square dancing specifically. The way they do this is like the most guaranteed way to make every young teenager's self-esteem go in the toilet really fast. And she looks at the teachers, calls them out, and just goes and grabs somebody and says, I'm not doing this. This isn't happening. Same thing for the stupid carry the egg around as you have to take care of it. She's like, yeah, no, not doing it. And just shocks everybody. So she wakes up the next day, goes back to the dinner, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, we've been looking for you. You were so awesome. And when you didn't come, she changed everything to this thing she thought was a dream, to the point that she isn't quite sure what she actually remembers about high school or what she doesn't. And it was really just kind of fun taking all of those horrible high school moments that as a teenager, you're like, I can't say anything, I'll get in trouble, and having the freedom to say, I don't care. What are you going to do to me? I'm old. Go away.
So, Patrick, who are we going to be meeting and hanging out with on this grand little heist?
So I have quite the collection of characters. So I have 6 POV characters, which was a joy to write. So I've got Kelsey, who's my thief, Salai, who is my con artist, Kelthar is the mage, Nyx is the hacker, Orkin is the mercenary muscle, and who am I leaving out? Aquila is the brains of the operation. So they all get hired on by a dragon whose name is Ansep, who puts them in harm's way to get a scroll that he needs from the fortress. So they don't know each other, so there's a lot of kind of, rubbing against each other, as people try to figure out how to work together in a stressful situation when people are trying to kill you. So it was an interesting dynamic with so many characters. Normally you have a single POV or maybe 2, but with 6, it was fun though, because it was moving the ball. So you never are in the head of the person who knows what the plan is. You're always in the head of the person who is trying to figure out what the hell to do to get out of it alive. So it makes it for a fun read.
So, looking at this variety of stories, one of the first questions that comes to mind is this: is as an author, it's that idea of grabbing and going to adventure, right? It's that idea of the call to action. It's the call to adventure, that pull that drags us out there to go and ultimately be the hero or sometimes the villain of our own stories. What is it about the story that really entices you to create that kind of a call to action? So, Mel, I'm going to ask you that first, and you can kind of pick whichever of your stories you want to go with.
What do you mean by the call to action?
The call to adventure. What is it about writing stories that have that grand call to adventure that appeals to you, and what is it you love going in on this and telling the story?
Believe it or not, I really like taking tropes and flipping them. I'm not usually the huge call to the adventure person. I'm very much the whole, what do you mean the dam broke and I have 30 minutes to get out of town and save everybody I know sort of thing, where there's not oh, this looks fun to do. It's more of, holy shit, if I don't do something right now, everybody dies. And it's on me because she's hurt, he's unconscious, this person's sucking on their thumb in the corner, and I'm the only one left standing. It is very rarely that they're the uber powerful chosen one, because I get tired of the trope. One of the first ones I have in, it's actually it's the only real romance that's in the entire thing, is the one that's actually set in a fantasy world. The guy is a mage. He served his time as a mage for the king, and he's running a bar up country. And the woman that he loved and has always loved walks into his bar, and he's just like, you're here. I thought you were going to be serving. She's just like, I was dismissed. We're good. And so they start to actually acknowledge that they have feelings for each other and start to build a life. When all of a sudden she's arrested for killing the king and dragged back to town. And it's this whole idea of nobody is going to try as hard to rescue her as I will. Not that he wants to be the hero, not that he wants to save the day. It's just that sometimes the cost of not doing something is so great, you don't have a choice.
So how about you, Patrick?
So mine isn't so much a call to action as it is, here, do this or I'm going to kill you. So I really like, the story really called to me because it was a mashup of a couple of my favorite ideas, being the idea of the heist. I just, Six of Crows or Leverage, or there's so many great heist, Ocean's 11. There's a lot of great heist books, but I wanted to do it in a non-typical way. So there came the world of Huck, who is where all this happens, the city ruled by dragons. So, but the dragons just tend to tell you what to do, and you do it or you die. So it was more of an interesting extortion technique to get the story going than some other ways, but it's a lot of fun to read.
How about you, Suzanne?
I probably have the easiest reason for doing it. I have a setting where we know the outcome eventually of the war, but the way I've set it up is they're into the war before we're officially in the war, and they have a sense of duty and a sense of honor, and the fact that they also meet heroines that have that same sense, and there's an urgency. There was an urgency about everything then. The world was on fire, almost like it almost is now, and they had a need to help others and to help end the war if possible. So the call to action for them is usually an assignment, but it always goes a little sideways for them. It's never going to be like, we just go and get this. Oh, we have people blowing things up, and we have people trying to kill Patton, and then we have, Nazis kidnapping the heroine. So each book has a little bit of a difference, and the settings each time is way different. I've never written a book that's not taken place in the United States, and I know a whole lot about Morocco now.
And you have a good excuse now to go to Morocco.
I'll go. I'll be your research assistant.
Well, one of the most fun parts about being a writer, one of the most fun parts, and I think that this kind of goes to that idea of now you know a whole lot about Morocco, is that idea of research. One of the best parts about being a writer are all the things you get to play with and learn and do in the process and experiment, and the mistakes we get to make, and all the choices we make. So when you look at this particular book, when you look at the stories that are in it, is there something you learned, something that was the research rabbit hole you jumped down? Is it something you learned about the process? Is it something you learned about even yourself in terms of writing and storytelling? What's something that the reader just has to know? Who wants to take that one first?
Never use 7 POV characters in a book. That is what I learned. Trying to juggle 7 distinct personalities and 7 distinct viewpoints is very, very difficult. It was a lot of moving parts to try to get put together into a cohesive story where you were constantly engaged, but not losing track of who was who.
I think the thing that I find most interesting, especially about short stories, is unless you're writing really specific genres like murder, thriller, or horror, most readers want that happy ending at the end of the book, be it that the hero saved the day, be it that the good guys won, whatever. They usually want some sort of fuzzy feeling, even if you know that danger is right around the next corner, they still want that. With short stories, you don't have to do that. I can have truly bad things happen where there are absolutely zero happy endings. I don't have to always end in a warm fuzzy. I can even have endings that are much more open-ended, whereas in a novel that really gets people upset. But with a short story, sometimes it's interesting to be able to think, okay, I ended the story here. What do you think is happening down the road? Because I don't have to tell you that that's where this story ended. The rest of it's up to you. And you don't always get that much flexibility in a novel, which honestly is a good thing. That would drive me crazy if I read too many novels that ended with open-ended endings. So someday I really want to pull up Clue. I really want to do that someday. I want to publish 3 versions of a novel with 3 totally radically different endings. But that's a someday thing, not a now thing. Really, it's not a now thing.
So that's how the Twisted Luck series is going to end, is 3 different universes or 3 different endings.
Don't tempt me, but no, people would probably kill me. But I do actually have multiple ways that could end. I just don't know how I would publish it, an ebook, with making it randomized as to which version you got. That would be really, really hard. Publishing, I could pull it off. Print versions. I'm not good. My fans would hurt me, and I like them liking me. But someday.
You could
Suzanne,
have 3 different covers.
you have to buy all 3 different endings.
There's that, but that also kind of gives it away that there are different endings, which I guess from a collector's point of view is really cool. From a reader's point of view, the only people who wouldn't mind would be people in Kindle Unlimited. But I really suspect Amazon would have a fit if the only thing that was different between 3 books was the last chapter.
Do it right before you retire.
You could link for the other ending.
Actually, that's what I could do it as a special. Pay from my website to get the alternate endings.
That might work.
$1 for every alternate ending that I wrote.
Oh, were we going to ask what?
Well, yes. What did you learn?
Well, first I learned that I didn't know that much about the invasion into North Africa. And I was like, I never knew there was an Operation Torch, and that it was a 3-pronged approach, and that the British weren't going to invade Morocco. They got Tangiers because they'd sunk the French Navy, and the French were a little pissy about it. I don't know why they would be. They kind of surrendered immediately. So what were we going to do? I learned that I wasn't sure how I was going to make this book work. And the more I investigated into it and discovered this river, there is a book called The 12 Desperate Miles. And it talks about the actual man that was the river pilot. I told you he got arrested. Well, he got back out, and in time for the British to sneak him out of Morocco and then back into Morocco, come back in to guide a banana boat up this river, because the river had a 17-inch clearance. That's as deep as the draft on the boat could, or it would get stuck on all of these sandbars. So they got one, I don't think it was a battleship, or just it was something. And then they had this, was an old banana boat that would go from Brazil to America to bring bananas. And it had a shallow draft because they had to carry all this airplane fuel and bombs for Patton to put into this airport. Once they got it, then they'd be able to use it to deliver bombs and supplies to the other troops. Kind of complicated, but it ended up being a really cool book to read. And what happened was, when he was arrested and sent to France, he managed to talk himself out of going to jail, but he couldn't get back into France because he kind of hacked off the French admiral that was in charge, and he wouldn't let him back for a while. And so that's why I could put my characters in there with their boat. And my missionary girl would have been up this river enough times to actually guide them. So I was able to take my fiction story and stick it right in the middle of real action. And they have to get her out the day the invasion starts, or they're afraid the Nazis will kill her. So it was a lot about Morocco. The kind of, you sit and you do the research and you read the stories and you keep getting more and more information. Then you have to go, okay, what do I really need for my book? As a history buff, I'm going, this is the coolest stuff. As an author, I don't need to write it all.
Well, it sounds like we've got plenty to stack up everybody's to-be-read piles as we're coming into that summer reading season. But before we get out of here, let's make sure everybody knows where to find you guys and, of course, the titles of the new release. So, Patrick.
My new release, as of today, is Never Steal from Dragons. It's on Amazon. You can get it in ebook, paperback, or hardcover. You can find me at patrickdugan.net. I'm also on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
Suzanne?
I am at SuzanneFerrell.com, and I'm on Instagram sometimes, and at Suze Ferrell on Twitter and Facebook. And the new book is called Cornered. Kind of looks like that. It comes out May 9th, and it will be at Amazon, Kobo, Barnes & Noble, and iTunes.
And Mel.
My book is called Words Are Magic. It is available in Amazon right now. It is just an ebook. It's available in KU. Maybe someday if I decide to actually design a wrap, I'll print it, but that wasn't on my to-do list. You can find me at badashpublishing.com. I'm also on Facebook under Badash Publishing or Mel Todd. Honestly, if you look for Mel Todd, that's pretty much me everywhere.
And
I have a really colorful truck. If you see my truck, you aren't going to miss me.
And I've had the pleasure of being your host this evening, Jim Nettles. You can find me at jamespnettles.com, authoressentials.net, authoressentialsworkshops.com, creatingprose.com, the speculativefictionacademy.com, and of course here at ConTinual. And we'll see everybody again soon. Go stack up those to-be-read piles.